Hello and welcome to the Ant-Man channel. It is Friday, the 3rd of January 2014, and I'm your host, Ant-Man. And what am I looking at? I'm looking at the newest issue of Voice of the Martyrs here. This is a sick issue so far. I've been reading it. I mean, if you read some of these stories, man, they will get you inspired to go out there and talk about the gospel. And it came with this cool map here that you get to look at. It shows you where all the restricted, hostile, and monitored areas in the world that Von looks at, and pretty much looks after our brothers and sisters all over the world with. They send you this, and I encourage you guys. I think that this is a big thing that the church in America is missing is the knowledge of what other people go through in other countries. And it's a very big blessing to me to know that because it makes me less. It inspires me to not be as afraid as you shouldn't be afraid, period. But it's the world that always tries to get you with their manipulating or trying to get you to believe a lie or whatever. It's easy. It's as easy as this. The devil is the father of all lies, and this is his kingdom. This is his world. So the world is a lie. The world system. And there is a perfect way to know how to do the things that God would be pleased and is desiring that you do for Him. And so go to persecution.com. I think that everybody in America, we would be blessed to start, caring about stuff like this. They only ask you for like $5, and if you donate that, you feed and clothe a family over there. It's pretty amazing. Something like that. It's not even expensive, but it makes a big difference. But anyways. I got an article in front of me from WND under the column Faith. It is, and I don't work for Voice of the Martyrs. I just think that that's an essential thing. The church isn't the Vatican in Rome. The church is you and me talking about the gospel, and I think that is a key element to our faith to know about what all Christians go through all over the world and how it's a normal thing for us to be like a sheep going to the slaughter. I guess is what the world would count as, but we do everything, and we do it for the Lord, and it gives us a lot of pleasure. This isn't our real, home. So don't get too attached to things on this earth. You came into this world naked. You're leaving it naked. You're leaving everything here behind. So it's pretty much all pointless. The only thing that serves a purpose is serving God. And you guys out there that know what I'm talking about, this is good news. A lot of people out there are afraid, to know the truth, and I understand, it takes a lot for someone to come to the knowledge, and I had to go through a lot to really understand. And I think that is our human nature, that when we are growing up, our parents try to tell us something and they're trying to direct us, but we say, I can do it on my own, I can do it myself. And then we realize that that our parents were only trying to help us, and that's how our human nature is of learning. We want to learn the hard way because we're kind of stubborn naturally, but anyways, new biblical discovery after 2,000 years, like Israel, source of blue dye for garments, makes comeback. Just like a lot of other things that are really supernatural, like the Shroud of Turin, and like how the humanists have this mantra that there is no evidence of God. And then you can ask any real Christian, is there evidence of God? And they will tell you, look around. It's just that people don't really look around. If you're in a marathon or a triathlon and you're running around and you're in a beautiful forest or whatever, some people don't look around and they don't really examine what they're around. And it's just, how do you look around and not know that? How do you not come up with the conclusion that this couldn't get here on its own? But anyways, let's get into this. This is really exciting news, by the way. The mysterious source of an ancient blue dye used by the children of Israel on garments at the command of God through Moses had been found after 2,000 years. And by the way, the color blue is a symbol of wholeness and perfection. In the Bible, the woman that had the issue of blood for 13 years, forgive me if I'm wrong, when she touched the hem of Jesus' garment, you have to understand, Jesus was a Jew. And in his tradition, he had to wear this, he had this really nice thing that they wear, and it's it's made a certain way, and it has certain colors that have to be in certain places. She touched the hem of his garment, which was the line, which was that exact blue, that exact ink that she touched on that linen or whatever, and that's an amazing fact because it just, everything has some type of symbology of spiritualism in it, and it's weird because it's you know, uh, That's just how deep God goes, how everything has purpose, and it's really amazing. Who can understand, who can measure. You can't even fathom. Trying to think, I'm like going in circles trying to even think of something to say about it. An Israeli researcher says she has identified fabric that may contain a mysterious blue dye described in the Bible, one of the few remnants of the ancient color ever found. Nema Sukenik of Israel's Antiquities Authority said Tuesday that recent examination of a small woolen textile discovered in the 1950s found that the textile was colored with a dye from the Murex trunculus, a snail researchers believe his belief was the source of the biblical blue or purple, pretty much. Well, he's saying that this is the exact way that they do it. The sages, the Jews, they know a lot of they carry down a lot of oral traditions in the Talmud or whatever. They have a lot of stories that aren't in the Bible that help you to understand certain things that are pretty amazing. Some of them are a little like you wonder sometimes, like, can that be true, or is that just like a rumor passed down? But it's just, nevertheless, it's interesting to listen to just to just get it just gives you a lot of pretty much it paints a picture in your mind more and more. Researchers and rabbis have long searched for the enigmatic color called tekhelet in Hebrew. The Bible commands Jews to wear a blue fringe on their garments, but the dye was lost after the dispersion of the Jews from the land in the first century. See, I told you. Sukenik examined the textile for a doctorate at Bar Lam University and published the finding at a Jerusalem conference Monday. So it's like nearly 2,000 years old. It's an old textile that appears to contain the biblical blue dye. It looks pretty nice, man. I mean, it's just, the humanist progressives of today, they think that people that lived 2,000 years ago were stupid and like they didn't, and to me it's amazing how you can like really believe that. I guess it's easy to fool someone who doesn't actually go in to research things on their own, to look at just the depth of wisdom that people like living that long ago had. And today we kind of replace wisdom with materialism. Like, we're like the ancient Egyptians in a way. Like, if I put on makeup and I'm wearing gold and I shave my head, if I look like I fit in with the society, then I'm successful. I'm walking in step with everybody. But the spiritual things, the things that I think are the only things that matter, seem to be the things that we just cancel out entirely. It's like taboo to talk about it. But the biblical reference to the dye appears in Numbers 15:38 through 39. Speak unto the children of Israel and bid them that they may make them fringes in their borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put upon the fringe of the borders a riband of blue. And it shall be unto you a fringe, that ye may look upon it, and remember all the commandments of the Lord, and do them, and that ye seek not after your own heart and your own eyes, which ye used to go a whoring. That's biblical language right there, by the way. Whoremongering is a biblical word, if you didn't know. When Israel was scattered by Rome in the first century, the dyeing process used for millennia by the Hebrew people was lost, along with the Jewish nation. Now, 66 years after the rebirth of the Jewish state, researchers are closing in on what they believe to be the source, a mollusk that was over-harvested by Roman royalty, which adopted the color as its own. It became a crime for Jews to wear garments dyed with a color or made in luz. Or made with the color, or made in... Wow. The ancient Israeli city identified with the manufacture of the fabric, so Luz is that place. The Talmud mentions 2 Jews captured by the Romans for the crime of having items made in Luz. The Israeli city identified with the manufacturer Tekhelet. There were other rulers against the plebeian population wearing colors deemed royal, including bands of Roman rulers such as Julius Caesar. Well, yeah, the Roman Empire was brutal, Anyone who was saying anything about, like, and that's what the color blue really represents, is a type of, like, it's perfection, it's wholeness, it's the color, it's a color that represents our God. So what that does with the Romans is it's just power, they're super power lusting, and they just want to display their prowess on everyone else. That's pretty much all it is, but that's why they got rid of that color. That's super. You see how the Bible's the only religious text that actually has a time set in actual history. No other religion has that. No other religion has a time set in every single and this actually matches like old theologians of the Roman Empire that wrote about this stuff. There's even a guy that wrote about Jesus. That this is not even this is secular. This isn't biblical. This is a guy who wrote about Jesus. Like, this guy was, he was rocking the boat. Pretty much is what he wrote, and that Pilate sentenced him to get crucified, and that's actual historical. But the atheist will avoid all historical uh, analysis. That's irrelevant with the progressives too, because truth, there is no absolute truth. It changes with circumstances, and therefore everything evolves. That word evolve in itself is kind of an oxymoron, because when you say evolve, you mean it to mean that something is getting better, but the word evolve tends to be attached to a certain theory that what it tends to really project is that things are getting better, but it's so contradictory to what the Bible says. Nothing tends to get better on its own. That's just nonsense. And you can observe that scientifically and come to a conclusion that we are being brainwashed with some type of like Russian socialist indoctrination, man. And it's just, that's the type of education people are getting, and it's funny because at the very core of why we have all these problems in politics is our education. But anyways, the newly recovered. See, I get off in other subjects because sometimes a lot of things are connected to things. The newly recovered biblical process of extracting the purplish blue dye from a Mediterranean mollusk is changing the way the commandment to wear tzitzit, the ritual fringes worn on the four-cornered prayer shawl, is being observed by some modern Orthodox Jews. Now, after 2,000 years, it is once again possible to include a blue techelet thread among one's fringe, in accordance with God's instructions to Moses. Do you think that would have any significance? I think it kind of would, you know what I mean? I think everything kind of tends to have a type of spiritual significance as long as you're going according to what God has decreed. You know what I mean? I think that everything has some type of like if you are honoring it, if you are observing its ordinance, then you are honoring God, and that somehow brings you, the blessings of God. They chase you down. That's how it's described in the Bible, and when you're under the new covenant, you are no longer getting the curse. You're no longer getting punished under the curse, like under the law anymore, but you still get the blessing for doing good, and it's a good thing because nothing is hindering you. Nothing is stopping you from doing your best and honoring God. Nothing is keeping you from that but yourself. Techelet was one of the few permanent dyes of the biblical era, made from a granular secretion of the murex snail called Dibromoyin duribim, which after 5 to 10 minutes of exposure to air and sunlight turns what's called biblical blue, say Jewish scholars. Despite rabbinical efforts to maintain use of techelet by the end of the first millennia, it was considered lost. Since then, observant Jews have worn white tzitzit. And by the way, if you didn't, to further persuade you about how the Roman Empire could have gone along with taking away that color blue from the Jews, it's very, very believable too. I mean, the Pharisees used the excuse that Jesus was saying that he was a king to get the Romans to agree with them to kill him, because they're like, well, we only serve Caesar. Caesar's the only king, and he's saying he's king, so that means you should kill him. And that's the whole code by which the Roman Empire kind of did run things. They were like the empire, But if you read Daniel and you read Revelations, it's all good, you guys, because God, he uses empires, he brings them up and he tears them down, and it's all for his coming kingdom. Even though that's really hard to comprehend, you have to have faith and trust. Coming from a guy whose country is going down a hellhole in a handbasket right now, I think that's a pretty optimistic way of looking at things. So, hey, despite rabbinical efforts, blah, 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 observant Jews have worn white. The dye revival is due in part to the initiative of several young Orthodox professionals now living in Israel, mostly graduates of yeshiva, university science departments. The blue used in the biblical garments also inspired the blue used in the modern Israeli flag. Oh, I didn't know that. I don't know if this is new or not. Some people don't think it is, but I think that's cool. You know, there's a lot of things you can look into that have a lot of bizarre and things you wouldn't expect. Just not coincidences. I don't believe in that, but just there's a lot of information attached to this. Go look up the Shroud of Turin. There's like radiation coming off of that thing. Nobody knows why or how, and it's when you think about it, it relates to something very crazy. Let me see if I have time to. I went over my time, but anyways, let me just say this. It relates to the like how when they were saying that like they wanted to get in his shadow just to be healed. There's like a radiation type of that comes off of you, man. I don't know. And Jesus being resurrected with that shroud on him, there's some type of like radiation power that comes off of us, like the light that comes off of us that's spoken about in the Bible. That might literally be present, that actually is there. And if anyone is in that area in your space, you know, like Peter, you know, I'm sure that things like that manifest. You know, I'm a Pentecostal Christian. I can't help but believe in all the supernatural things that I see in the Bible. But anyways, thanks for listening and God bless.